Good morning. Good afternoon. It's totally not morning. It's totally afternoon. Good afternoon, guys. It's your girl, Zsa Zsa. You're listening to Yeah, I Said It. Before I take it back, I'm going to add more to it. And I know you heard me the first time. Listen, as I always say, every time it is Thankful Thursdays. And I am super, super duper grateful to be in my right mind. We made it through February, guys. We made it through all the trials and tribulations. We are still in our right mind. We still have the activities of our limbs. We are not in the hospital. What up, though, Sharon? We are thinking of ways to better ourselves, better our families. We are progressing. We are not in jail. Listen, we are in our right minds. And I'm telling you, the enemy always comes to try to steal, kill, and destroy, and always causes us to look at ourselves in a way where we don't feel like we are progressing and we don't feel like we're moving in the right direction. And that's one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about today, and that is checking and changing your perspective. I got a lot of boobage going on right here. But anyway, changing your perception and your perspective. And sometimes in life, we go through so many trials and tribulations, ups and downs, joys, sorrows, happiness, and they alter our decision making. I know a lot of us in high school, middle school, and elementary school, especially when I talk to a lot of our younger young men and young women, and they talk about one of the things that they want to be in life and what they want to be when they grow up and what they want to do. And like any adult knows that those things change. Yes, when you're younger, you say, oh, I want to be a pediatrician, or I want to be a doctor, or, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to do this, I want to do that. And sometimes in life, those things change. Sometimes you go a different direction. Sometimes in life, other things happen that will detour your focus, or you do end up doing what you wanted to do, but so much stuff has happened and transpired for you to accomplish those goals. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to Yeah, I Said It. It's your girl, Zsa Zsa, and we're talking about changing and checking your perspective. And, right now we are in a critical moment in our country. We are in a critical moment in our world and in our time because of the simple fact that we have African-American entrepreneurs, especially females, at a soaring rate right now. We have prejudice and racial incidents that are happening, that are being broadcast via social media and recorded. And a lot of things are not going under the radar as they have done in times past. And one of the blessings that we can actually say right now is that we are giving a greater viewpoint and a greater perspective of how this world is working and how things are happening. One of the things that I want to talk about is, no matter what anybody felt personally about our former President Barack Obama and his family, the first family, one of the things that they showed us is a perspective of what family looked like. What genuineness looked like, how a man treated his wife, and how a wife treated her husband, and children being able to succeed, and just having the family dynamic and what that looked like. And unfortunately, the presidency that we have right now is taking us way back and changing our perception and focus on how a country should be led. Now, I don't know about you all, but I really want you all to be adamant about paying attention to a lot of the things that are happening within our community, a lot of things that are happening in our society, a lot of things that are happening within our world, because when you don't pay attention to what's happening, things slip through the cracks. I mean, if they were able to do a government shutdown, cut off people's food stamps, cut off Section 8 vouchers, cut off the free food and lunch program, and it may not affect you per se. You may not be on food stamps. You may not have to have a Section 8 voucher. Your kids may have lunches when they go to school. They may go to a really nice school where they provide a decent lunch. But for the thousands and almost millions of families that do, it does affect them. It does hinder the performance already because of the socioeconomic restraints that we have on people that look like you and I. And not only that, but we have to understand that when we change our perspective and our viewpoint of how we look at things. And the thing about it is perception and perspectives show you what people want you to believe. It is the persona of what a person puts out there first, opposed to what's really actually happening. And I tell you guys all the time, like, I don't ever want you all to think like, oh, I'm popping, I'm this grand person, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm not, or I'm living this certain type of way. But what I do is I'm always on my A game, to the point where I don't want to get caught slipping, because you can get caught slipping at any given moment, and you always want to make sure that you're straightforward and honest and have integrity about what's happening in your world. I talked last week just about being honest and being truthful with yourself and truthful with the people that you're connected to. And when you change your perspective and how you view certain things, because your perspective may be different than mine. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to, I said it, and before I take it back, I'm gonna add more to it, because I ain't scared of none of y'all. Y'all ain't got a heaven or hell to put me in. So boom. Anywho, that was one of the things that I loved about President Obama. President Obama gave us a perspective of how the structure of family. Martin Luther King, the structure of family. Malcolm X, structure of family. These were intricate men in our world that showed us how things could be orchestrated and reflective of people that look like you and I. And right now, because we have a leader that is our president, who gave us a perception that all he wanted was money, all he wanted was power, and all he wanted was, the fame and the money. And that's the perception that he gave. Now, money and power can get you a lot of things, but what it cannot get you is the truth. It can buy you time. It can change people's storylines for the most part. I mean, look at R. Kelly. Look at Jussie Smollett. I talked about that last week and the week before then. Money and power can only contain something for so long until things come crumbling down. That's why you have to be careful what you put out there and what you put out for your people, your audience. We all get on social media. We all post things, whether it be about our family, our social status, our financial status, our mental status, how we feel about other things, how we feel about other people. And we post things, and we don't really realize what type of perception that we're given. And it's so interesting, because when people that don't know me, they're like, oh my God, like, she's so this or she's so that. And then when they get to know me, it's like, oh my God, wow, I didn't even know she was like this cool, or this, that, and the third, because of the perception. Now, some things that you can't change. You can't change how people view you. Because when you first meet someone, you have that initial observation of, what they look like, how they sound. It's like working at a new job, and you immediately be like, oh, I ain't gonna like them. Or me and them gonna be really good friends, or me and this person are gonna be ace boom cool. And then as time progresses, you end up learning things about the people. You be like, ooh, no, we ain't gonna be too good together. Or no, this may not be the best fit. Or they don't share the same values that I share. And change isn't always comfortable. It doesn't always make us feel good, especially when you're put in a position where you've had certain situations. So like for me, for instance, I have been going through some challenges and some changes, and I had to take Lyft everywhere I went, right? And I was just so pissed, like, oh my God, I don't even want to take the stupid Lyft. I just want to just get my car and my truck back and do whatever it is that I got to do. But then one day, I was taking a Lyft, and this guy, I promise y'all, on my mom and daddy and my brother grave, this man, he said this straight out his mouth. He said, you remind me of like Oprah or like a Wendy Williams, and like you're just sitting back there conducting business meetings. And it changed my my perception. It changed how I thought about my struggle and my hardship for that moment. Like at that very moment, I'm being driven around, taken everywhere I needed to be, and I'm looking at it as a burden and not looking at it as, you can focus on this business call, or you can focus on your son and actually have a conversation with him and not have to worry about driving and talking on the phone. Like my whole thought process changed, and that's the power of perception. That's the power of moving things in your mindset to make it make sense for you and not make it look so hard and damaging and challenging. I know when my mom was going through, her sickness and her demise, it was so hard for me to sometimes go into that hospital room and look at her laying there. But I had to change my perspective and look at this thing as this is a time and a moment where I get to share with my mother. I get to, talk in her ear, massage her feet, polish her toenails, file her nails. I get to massage her legs. I get to comb her hair. We had always been so busy and on the hustle and bustle that we didn't get a chance to really spend a lot of time together because I was living in my world and she was living in hers. And so I had to change my perspective and my perception of things. And when you change your perception of things, you change your life. When you change your thought process on how you look at things or look at the outcome of things, it'll change your whole dynamics, and it allows you to be stronger. Just imagine all the things that we've been through in life that were uncomfortable for us. And at the moment of our weakness and at the moment of our struggle, we felt like it was unbearable. Like there were some things that I had to deal with that I felt like, oh my God, like I cannot even believe this is happening. This is totally unfair, God. Like, why would you allow this stuff to happen to me? And I don't know about you, but I question God all the time. Like, God, what's up? Like, do you not rock with me? Like I know I be sinning, like forgive me and whatnot. Like I know better. I know I need to get my life in order. But, God, I'll try to pay my tithes and give my offerings, and I try to live my life the best that I can and do right by people. Like, what's up? Like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to my family? And he had to let me know to change my perception and my viewpoint of things, because there was a moment where I was going through like literally all the stuff that Job had went through. And I don't know if you all know about Job in the Bible, but not trying to be deep, like I always say, not trying to be extra religious, but in the spirit of things, Job lost his wife, his all of his assets. He lost his friendship. He lost his spouse. He lost everything. He lost his health. He lost his mental stability. But one thing that he did not lose is his faith. And the thing about it is that we get into situations that cause us to lose our faith. It causes us to look at our situation as if we're never going to get out of it. And I mean to tell you, like, I've been in some stuff where I felt like I was mentally trapped in my mind and I could not break free. And mentally being trapped is worse than physically being trapped. At least physically being trapped, you can look for an exit. You can look for an escape or create an escape plan. When you're mentally challenged or mentally trapped, it's hard to find an escape plan because it's in your mind. It ain't like you could take your brain out your skull and rinse it off with some water and put it back in again and hope that it works better or new. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to I Said It, and before I take it back, I'm gonna add more to it. We're talking about changing your perspective. And the thing about it is, with our president right now, his attorney, okay? Let's be very clear about this. His attorney is speaking out and has spoken out against him. And the perception that he's always wanted us to believe is fake news this, fake hearing this, this isn't real. They're full of it. This is baloney. Like, this isn't real, you guys. Like, don't listen to them. And it's okay, because as long as somebody is stroking his ego and as long as somebody is supporting what it is that he wants to do, he's able to finesse the people. And you have to be careful for people who are always trying to finesse. Y'all know people who try to finesse. They want to make it seem like they're a boss. They want to make it seem like, they got it going on. They want to make it seem like their lives are so grand and they're making all these great business deals and they're doing all of these extravagant things. And, they just did this and they just did this, but they never talk about the hardships and the challenges. When I talk about some of my business deals, some things didn't go so well. I lost money. I lost friendships. Lost relationships that I thought were going to be beneficial for me. I had to end some friendships that I didn't realize were not the best friendships for me. And that didn't feel good. That made me hurt. That made me cry. That made me feel some type of way. And see, some people are so used to always putting out all of the good things on social media that they never put out the real things on social media. There were moments where I had to literally change my perspective on how I felt about myself. Like, wait a minute, Zsa Zsa. You are a great friend. You are a great person. These people just don't recognize your value. These people don't understand what you bring to the table. These people want to undermine and do certain things. And I also had to realize some truths about myself. Hey, Zsa Zsa, you weren't always the best communicator. You didn't always have the best attitude. You didn't always do things by the book. You didn't always you sometimes put yourself in situations that were contradictory to the things that you were verbally saying. So I had to rethink all of what was happening and look at all of the ingredients. And it was so funny because, like I said before, change is very uncomfortable, but change is necessary for growth. And anybody, especially for our young men out there, my male viewers, you know that when you start growing and having that growth spurt, you have achy joints and your back hurts and your head hurts and your shoes become too tight and your pants, and you just start feeling uncomfortable, like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly wrapped into a cocoon. You start becoming and changing, and it doesn't feel good. It's a very unfamiliar and uncomfortable thing when you're dealing with growth, especially when it's growth that has hurt you or growth that's caused you some type of internal or external pain. That growth can sometimes really smother your mental stability. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to I Said It, and before I take it back, I'm gonna add more to it. We're talking about changing your perspective. And the thing about your perspective is your eyesight. You know, the Bible often talks about guiding your eyes and your ears and your mouth. And one of the reasons why is because depending on what you look at will mess with your mental state of mind. Especially for our men that are single. You see men that have great families and great family structures, and they're always on social media talking about, you know, their family and their wife and this, that, and the third. And then here you are looking at the Loch Ness monster that you married and your bad kids, and you feel some type of way mentally, you know, or you're single and you're trying to figure out, will I ever find the one? Will there ever be somebody for me? Single women, you look at bae goals and relationship goals, and you look at how you are accomplished and you're well poised, and you know you're a decent woman, and why hasn't anybody tried to bae me up or wife me up? Or you look at those certain things and it causes you to feel some type of way mentally, and you look at your situation and you say, well, wow, you know, I wish that, you know, God would do this for me, or I wish I was in their shoes. And you don't understand that people put out what they want you to know on social media, point blank, period. Like, one of the things that I can pride myself on is that I'm straight up no chaser, cocaine white, and y'all ain't got a heaven or hell to put me in. And at the end of the day, I'm going to tell my truth, because that's exactly what it is, because I'm not trying to finesse anybody. I want people to understand that life is real, life is hard at times, and it can be a struggle. However, there are tools in place and resources and partnerships and people like myself that are here to educate, inspire, and entertain, so that you understand that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel, even if that light is a night light. It doesn't always have to be a spotlight. Even if you can see that small little light. And I think that's one of the reasons why God wanted people to understand that all you needed was a mustard seed of faith. It doesn't take a big old gallon of faith or a tub load of faith. It was just enough just to hold on to a small belief that, you know what, all of my bills right now are overwhelming me and I am extremely stressed out, but I have a job. So somebody's not going to get paid this week. And if we got to get our lights cut off, I'm going to go get some candles, and we're just going to light up the room for the week, and we're going to have dinner by candlelight. When you change your perspective, your stress levels come down. When you change your perspectives on things, your viewpoint and how you look at it becomes different. And see, the thing about with people who try to finesse on social media and act like they got their life just going on and it's just thebomb.com and they never have any struggles or challenges, and you know they're just so like got it all together, they end up crying behind closed doors and having panic attacks. They end up going through life's changes in private and try to publicize all the grand things that they do in the public. And the thing about it is that whenever you think that you're getting away in private, God will have a way of publicizing all of your struggles and your weaknesses publicly. Here we are with a president his attorney was sworn to an attorney, when you have an attorney that you can actually afford, you confide in them. Any wealthy person knows you need a good accountant, you need a good attorney. Those are two things that you need in order to maintain your image and your wealth. And at the end of the day, you have an attorney like Michael Cohen, who has been sworn to secrecies, who's had a lot of information that the world has no clue of. And here we are years later down the line, and he's saying, oh, our president is a racist, our president is this, our president is that, which makes us, first of all, we already knew this is not something that we needed Michael Cohen to actually confess to. These are things that he's displayed, but at the end of the day, the perception that they tried to get us to believe was alternative to and contrary to what it is. And here now you are with your back up against the wall. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to, yeah, I said it, and before I take it back, I'm gonna add more to it. We're talking about changing your perspective. And at the end of the day, what Michael Cohen did is he wants us to change his perspective on how we're viewing our president. Well, we already knew from his actions and his behaviors what type of person he is. And that's why you have to be mindful of your actions and your behaviors, especially the things that you post on your social media sites, in comparison to what you think somebody else is doing. Never think that your things are small in comparison to somebody else, because you never know their struggle. You never know how hard they've had to work. You never know the people they've had to climb over to get to where they are. You never know the relationships that have faltered or fallen by the wayside. You never know the tears and the struggles and the pain that they've had to go through, the nights that they stayed up. And, I commend anybody who is trying to change their image or trying to change their repetitive behaviors that they knew were not reflective to them or positive habits that they knew weren't reflective of them. And at the end of the day, one of the things that is going to cause the downfall of our president is the fact that he's not willing to change. He's okay with his behaviors. He's okay with being the person that he is. And at the end of the day, you can't fault a person like that, because they're going to finesse until they die. Sometimes you just got to leave people where they are and not pick them up. We sometimes have the tendency of hurting ourselves because we want to pick people up and pick up situations that we should have left a long time ago because our perception and our viewpoint has changed. It's like knowing that you don't smoke weed no more, and now you're strong enough to be around people who smoke. Your viewpoint has changed. You're not all loopy and goofy, or you don't drink anymore. And so now you look at people with a different perspective, because now you're not a part of the people who drink and get high anymore. So now your viewpoint is different. And it's not to say that you're better than anybody else. It just means that your perception of life is in a sobering eyes. What you thought was once fun and exciting because you were under the influence is no longer exciting anymore because your perception of it has changed. And at the end of the day, you want to do things that strengthen you as a human being, strengthen you as a father, a mother, a cousin, a friend. You want to do things that help your future and not stunt your growth. Because when you start changing your perspective on things, and you start changing your viewpoint on things, that's when God will bless you with miracles, because your outlook on things are different. You start viewing certain situations differently. When the guy was telling me, and I was in the lift, like, man, you look like you're going to be like the next Oprah or the next like Wendy Williams, that the struggle in my mind no longer became a struggle. I looked at the situation like, you know what? I could get used to being driven around. I could get used to being in the back taking calls and being on my phone. I could get used to, being picked up, at the curb, and I'm coming out of different places and venues and being picked up. And, I'm no longer looking at it as this is Lyft picking me up. This is my driver. Okay. You start looking at it in a different format, like when I was dealing with my hair loss and having alopecia. That was the most depressing thing that I ever felt like I had went through or going through a divorce or going through, family disputes and situations. But those things cause me to be more reflective of myself. Now I can put on a wig and look like anybody that I want to look like. With my family, it's caused us to be stronger and build a better relationship, because now everybody is learning their lane. Everybody is learning who they are as an individual. And sometimes you have to separate yourself, change your focus, change your thought process in order for the miracles and the blessings to happen. They may not happen right away because all you're looking at as something as negative, when your outcome and your thought process has to change this situation. When I looked at, my brothers going off to prison, it was hard for me because it made my mom depressed. It was like two more men, that's taken from our family. But then I thought about it. I thought about, well, if my brothers were out here in the world that we live in, they would either have killed somebody or somebody was going to kill them. And I knew that because all I could see on their life was prison or death while they were already out here in the world. And some of us have to really look at situations as they are. Sometimes we like giving people the benefit of the doubt, but we have to look at the reality of a situation. If you know that one of your family members is a crackhead, at the end of the day, yeah, you want to pray for them, but you're not going to leave your purse on the couch while they at your house, because your perception of them is like, okay, I know you my cousin, but I got to put my stuff up because my perception of not only you my family, but right now you're not in a position or mental ability to understand the value of my things. So you're going to take them because you understand the value of my things are worth drugs to you when the value of my things are worth more. And at the end of the day, when you're drinking and you're partying and you blessing the bottle. Y'all remember back in the day where you bless the bottle and all that old crazy stuff? You remember you take the bottle, y'all go to the store and they passing the bottle around talking about bless the bottle. Like, you start changing your perspective of things. Like, I don't know anybody that I hang out with that, and I was talking to a friend, me and him were talking about it. He was like, when do you just stop just doing certain things? Like, when does your perception of life change and blessing a bottle is no longer a thing? You know what I mean? And no shade to anybody that's still out there blessing a bottle. God bless your soul. But you end up changing the perception of how you would go about doing things. Back in the day, like when you were younger, you were looking for the 24-inch rims and, the guys with the chain and, and different things of that nature. And then after a while, you start looking for, do you have a house? Do you have somewhere to live? Do you have a vehicle? Are you an abuser? Your perception of what you're looking for changes, and you end up, having a different viewpoint. And the thing about it is that in comparison to what's happening, everybody's trying to finesse. Everybody's trying to look like they got stuff popping, and it really ain't popping. Because, I go on social media and I'm just trying to figure out sometimes, like, how are you even doing what you're doing if you're on social media all the time? Like, you were on here an hour ago. You were on here 30 minutes ago. You were on here 5 minutes ago. Like, and the thing about it is that social media is going to be so much more invasive than it is right now. Like, if you think right now you have no privacy, there's going to come a moment where you're not going to have any privacy in real life, because of the simple fact that we're not enjoying life the way life was meant to be enjoyed, because we're always on our phones. We're always trying to see and like and follow and look at whatever's going on, instead of enjoying our families, enjoying relationships, building relationships, going over each other's houses, having game nights. On one side of my dad's side of the family, they are very, very strong. And I saw that my cousin Stephen Buford was on the line, and their family was notorious for partying and having family events and having, family dinners and things of that nature. We've gotten so far from that. The only time we communicate is when we're on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever social media platform, but we don't pick up the phone and actually talk to somebody and say, hey, how you doing? You been on my mind. And, but we'll send a message. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't check their messages. A lot of times people are not always, the first thing that they're not doing is looking on their Facebook when you get up in the morning. And a lot of us are notorious for that. I was one of the people that was notorious who messaged me today, who sent a message today. And so at the end of the day, we have to be mindful that we have to check our perspective. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to I Said It, and before I take it back, I'm going to add more to it. I'm your girl, Zsa Zsa, and we're talking about changing your perspective. And sometimes change is inevitable. We're getting older. None of us are reverting back in age. We're getting older. Our kids are getting older. Our grandkids are getting older, and life is changing as you once know it. At the end of the day, I was just talking about, I'm sure the taxi cabs, Lorraine cab and Checker cab and a yellow cab had no clue that Lyft and Uber were emerging. They because of their perception of the transportation world. They figured cabs will be here forever. Well, at the end of the day, they decided they want to take their sweet time with picking people up or just blowing a horn and then pulling off. Whereas here is a company that emerged and said, you know what, you don't value your customers, we're going to take them from you. Hotels never thought in a million years that they would have to compete with homeowners that are leasing out their couches and their beds and their studio apartments and their homes for the leisures of vacation time or the leisures of hanging out. They never imagined in a bazillion years that they would have to be competitive with a company that all they do is rent out their own space and making money from it. Fix it up, make it look nice, put some soap in there, some you can furnish it, you can have some food in there, and you're making well on your way. Or having the opportunity to not only be a Lyft driver without having to have a commercial license, or being able to utilize your own vehicle to make profits with a company like Lyft or Uber, because their perception had not changed. When your viewpoint changes and your perception changes in life, God will be able to utilize certain things and certain people in a way that you didn't think to. I always knew I wanted to be a television host. I always knew I wanted to be in politics, and I always knew I wanted to do radio, but I didn't know I was going to have to go through a tumultuous divorce. I didn't know I was going to have to lose my mother to a sickness and an illness in a hospital that didn't really give a darn about her health. I didn't realize that, my brother was going to get killed in prison, or that, I was going to help take care of my nephew while my other brother was away doing time. I didn't realize that, I was going to have a nervous breakdown, or I was going to lose this, or these things were going to happen. I didn't realize that I was going to go back to school and have Mildred Gaddis as my mentor, or Dorinda Clark Cole as my mentor for TV and radio. I didn't realize that I was going to have to go through all of these different channels and changes just to get to my vision. And some of us, sometimes we look at our life and we look at our struggles or our challenges and our changes and our ups and downs and joys of life, and we think, man, like, these are the ulterior methods and alternative methods that sometimes God has to use in order for him to A, get your attention, B, get the attention of others, and allow you to actually manifest what it is that you want to manifest. Because some of us say that we want to do certain things, but sometimes we're not willing to actually do what it is that we say that we want to do. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to I Said It, and before I take it back, I'm going to add more to it. We're talking about changing your perspective, and changing your perception of things, because we want people to believe that we're okay. We want people to believe in the finesse game, or that we got everything handled. And sometimes it's not everybody's business. It's not for the world to viewpoint your struggle, but there is value in being genuine and being honest. And some people just don't know how to be genuine. Some people like to feel like they have the upper hand on other people, or feel like they're doing better, because actually they're really insecure. They're actually trying to feel like they're in this boss mode when they're really not. Like, they're struggling, they're dealing with disappointments, just like each and every one of us, but they choose to only show certain people the forefront and the blessings behind the facade of their life and their struggle. And you have to be careful with being a finesser, because you have to keep that up. I know a guy right now who went from one relationship living with one woman to turning around and living with a whole nother woman, finessing her company. And so now you have to deal with the ramifications of what you put out there in the world. See, you have to be careful the things that you say about other men and other women and how they do things and how they live their life and how they take care of their kids, because you never know what life will bring you. You never know what changes will transpire in your life. You never know what will happen. Well, you'll have to catch the bus, or you'll be out of car, or you'll be out of house, and you got to move back in with your mom or a relative. You might want to be careful the words that you put on other people, because you never know what will happen in your life. You never know what will transpire and how you end up asking for help. That's why you always got to treat people. I treat people the same all the way through. There's no high or low or no median. You get the same respect, the same Zsa Zsa straight across the board, unless you decide that you want to change with me. And the thing about it is that when you start changing your perceptive and your perception and your perspective of things, and how you view it, it'll change your life in general. And it'll change your attitude toward those things regarding how you feel about certain things. And the thing about it is when you're out here trying to finesse and act like you're doing whatever it is, the quickly that you put yourself on, the quickly you'll put yourself off. Have you ever noticed you be on social media and there be people on there and like they used to be so heavy on social media and then all of a sudden they just drop off? Like, well, what happened? Like, you was like doing all these great things and you were popping and you had this and you had that going on. Well, what happened? Let us in on that part. Like you were this and you were that and you had this and you had that and you were walking into this building and you were closing this deal and you were closing this contract. Okay, well now you don't even hear from them no more. You don't even hear. They don't even have a status no more. And then it makes you wonder, like, oh, well, were you doing this for the gram and the likes and to act like you was doing better than everybody else? Or was this really your lifestyle? And if this was really your lifestyle, well, what happened to the hard parts? Why we don't get to see that? Why we don't get to see, and it makes you feel some type of way about yourself and what you got going on. And I tell people all the time that starting a business or starting a family, don't look to your left and to your right. Focus on what you're doing. If you focus on what you're doing, it's okay to admire other people and admire what other people are doing from afar, or even to link up with them and to find out what it is that they're doing, because we have to change our perspective on how we treat each other and how we deal with one another. We have to change our perspective on how we operate with one another as a community, as a family, and as a whole, because when you change that, you won't get people to come to Detroit, especially, and make it seem like, oh, Detroit is so much better and it's just so much more grand and it's this amazing, place. And, now because we've had, these few white people do a few things and these few people invest a little bit of money. And at the end of the day, we're allowing these things to happen because we're sitting on our hands and not manifesting the things that God gave us to do. There are things that you're so afraid of doing because of other people's opinions of you and how somebody may feel about who you used to be. Okay, yeah, you used to be alcoholic. Yeah, you used to smoke cigarettes. Yeah, you used to be a Tatiana. Well, okay, change your behaviors and move on, because at the end of the day, nobody's voice is more louder or more effective or more prominent in your world than your own and God's. There became a point where I was so consumed with how other people viewed me because I was in a political world and I had to look a certain kind of way. And when you're in a caliber or in a career that causes you to conform, or you're in the church world and you got to talk a certain way and be a certain way, and you're amen and everything. I found myself amen and everything. Like, Like, girl, and then you have these tragedies that happen in your world, and it makes you contradict everything that you thought about life. It makes you feel some type of way about people. It makes you feel some type of way about friendships. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to, yeah, I said it, and before I take it back, I'm gonna add more to it. We're talking about changing your perspective. And at the end of the day, when you look at those life tragedies and those things that have affected your viewpoint, because you start looking at family different. You start looking like, how are you my auntie? Or how are you my cousin? And you okay with talking about me? Or how are you my business partner? And you feel okay with being shiesty with your customers or your clientele? How do you say you my church family, but yet you in a huddle over here talking about me instead of praying for me? You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes your perception of things change. And so then you start looking to develop a better relationship with God. And that's exactly what happened to me. I'm gonna tell you, I was so caught up in friendships and relationships and these people being for me and these people supporting me, that I just had to learn to support Zsa Zsa. I had to learn to be Zsa Zsa's biggest fan. I had to learn to be Zsa Zsa's biggest customer. I had to learn to be Zsa Zsa's counselor and Zsa Zsa's friend and love Zsa Zsa all the way through, regardless if her boobs was sitting up at attention or if they was down to her belly button. I had to be okay with if my wig was shedding or if it was tight that week. I had to be okay with if I had to wear dollar store lashes or if I had to go get me some good old $6-7 lashes. I had to learn to be okay with me. And when I changed my perception and my perspective of me, I couldn't care less what anybody else thought about me. I wasn't seeking anybody's approval about anything that I was doing in my world, because I was looking to live to please God and live to please me. And when you learn to please yourself, and when you learn to focus on God, it makes your life so much easier, because you're not caring about what nobody says. If you want to have a glass of wine a day with your dinner, guess what? That's just what you're going to do. If you decide that you don't want to go to church this Sunday and I want to take a long hot bath and get my mind together, guess what? That's what she's going to do. If she wants to turn her phones off and not answer anybody's call and make sure all her kids are good, guess what? That's what Zsa Zsa is going to do, because my perception has changed. If I decide that I want to go on a vacation and I want to go and visit New York and I don't want to tell anybody other than the people that need to know, guess what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm not waiting on anybody's approval for anything, because my perception and perspective has changed in such a way where I'm no longer looking for validation or approval for anybody in anything that I'm doing in my life. And the minute that you start focusing and zeroing in on you, that's when you can lose weight. That's when you can make the money. That's when you can start on the business. That's when you can organize your world and organize your life. When you stop looking at the struggles and the things that have transpired in your life as negatives, and you look at those things like, you know what? Okay, this happened. It wasn't okay. I was friends with these people. Okay, the friendship didn't work out. I still love them. There's no mad or ill feelings that I have for nobody. Okay, what do I want to do? Okay, let me jot these things down. What can I do right now that I'm capable of doing without anybody's help? Okay, let me focus on that. Okay, once you start focusing on those things and those things get accomplished, okay, what can I do right now with somebody's help that I don't have to spend money on, that I don't have right now? Okay, I can do those things right now with the help of X, Y, and Z. And you have to be careful who you also link up with, whose viewpoint is different from yours. It's like being in a relationship. You have to be very, very mindful of who you connect with, because everybody's viewpoint might not be the same as yours. It doesn't mean that you want somebody that's going to conform the same way you do or the same way your life is. It just means that you want to have people that you're like-minded with. It makes life a lot easier. But you also have to respect other people's viewpoint. There's a lot of people I work with. We don't always agree. Like yesterday, I talked with a few of my good girlfriends, and yesterday we were talking about a relationship that she was once in that was very tragic. It was verbally abusive, it was physically abusive, it was mentally abusive. And at the moment, we were all giving her warnings like, hey, this is not it. This is not what's popping. This is not love. But at the end of the day, the only thing that I can do is be your friend and continue to support you and continue to let you know, hey, this is not what you deserve. This is not what you were meant to be on this earth to take. You weren't meant to be on this earth to deal with a jerk like this. And being her friend, I had to wait until she changed her perspective, her viewpoint of herself. She had to change how she saw herself, how she saw this individual who she once loved. See, when you start changing your perception and your perspective on people and things, you will look at them a lot differently. That's one of the reasons why I love art. Like, I love creating. I'm a visionary. You know, a good friend of mine, she asked me, you know, how did you play when you grew up? And I told her, you know, I love to write when I was a kid. I love to read. I love to draw. I still color right now. Like, me and my nephew, Boston, we were just coloring the other day while my other nephew, Braylon, was doing his homework, because it's a release for me. It's looking at a blank sheet of paper with no color and me adding color to it and me adding what I visually see in my head, even if those colors don't match. When I go to the art gallery, I don't just look at the art for what it is. I look deeper into it. I look at the paint that they use, the strokes that they use. I look at the time frame in which they created this art, you know, because at the end of the day, there were a lot of limited resources. That's why certain arts are worth more value than some arts right now. But the arts that are being made right now will soon be worth so much more value at the end of the day. That's why you have to be mindful of not to take what you do right now for granted. Because yeah, it may be a little business to other people, but keep at it. You keep the same perspective. I may be on my social medias right now, but there's going to be a point where I'm going to be on national TV. And there's going to be a point where I'm going to have cameras, camera 1 and camera 2 and camera 3. And I'm going to have a floor director. And I'm going to have, you know, my social media person. There are going to be times where I'm going to have a whole crew of things. So I don't take what I do right now to be small. I take it serious. When I say I'm getting on 12:30, it may be a few minutes late, but I'm getting on. And so you take what you do serious because your perception changes. It don't matter what nobody else feels about your business. It don't matter what somebody feels about your relationship, especially if right now your viewpoint is, this is what's working for me and I'm going to work it out. And like my friend that I talked to last night, and if you're tuning in, you're listening to, yeah, I said it, and before I take it back, I'm going to add more to it. And I know you heard me the first time, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be on the show. Listen, we're talking about changing your perception and your perspective. Because the minute that you change how you see your life will be the minute how your life changes. And at the end of the day, there are things that are going to come into your world. There are going to be relationships that are going to come into your world to help groom you. They may not be to stay. They may not be permanent relationships. They may not be permanent business ventures. They might not even be permanent friends, relationships, business partners or business ventures. They may be certain things in your life that's going to teach you how to grow and how to maneuver, so that way when you get where God has for you, you can learn how to maneuver a lot different. You learn how to deal with things a lot differently than when you weren't knowledgeable of what betrayal felt like, when you weren't knowledgeable of how to do a contract, when you weren't knowledgeable of how to utilize your tax money to the best of your ability, when you weren't knowledgeable of how to purchase a house and go through foreclosure. Yeah, those things aren't comfortable, but they cause you to grow. They cause you to have those positive affirmations and changes to let you know, but you can't get lost in the sauce and you can't lose focus. Yeah, you can cry. You can be upset. It's okay. It's an emotion that we all have that we have to tap into. There are things that cause us to feel some type of way, and don't ignore that. Because the minute that you start ignoring how you feel about a certain situation, the more it lingers. I had a girlfriend telling me about, you know, a relationship with a good girlfriend that she thought she had, and she felt some type of way about this relationship. Don't ignore those feelings. Don't ignore how a person makes you feel. I had to end a friendship because I didn't like how you were valuing the friendship. You can't kiki with me and call yourself my friend and hang out with my enemy. And you were a front row seat as to how these things transpired in my life and what they caused me. I don't care what your perception and viewpoint is if you value our relationship. That's why you have to be mindful of how you look at people, how you look at certain situations, and you call a spade a spade. If you know something ain't good for you, it's no point in you entertaining it as if you know as if you know it is good for you. That's like a person who eating a burger every single day. Like, you know good and well that eating a burger every day may taste good for you, but it ain't good for you. It'll cause high cholesterol. It'll cause you to become overweight, tired. And then next thing you know, you can't fit in the skirt and dress that you once was able to fit in because now you become depressed and you become, your whole thought process is changing. But the minute you change your perception and your perspective on how you view fast food, now it's a once in a while thing and not I gotta get this burger or this 4 for $4. Now it's a thing of I don't have to always go out to eat. I'm gonna bring lobster and shrimp scampi and crab legs to my home. I'm gonna bring steak to my house. You start changing your perception and your perspective of how you go about doing certain things. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to I Said It, and before I take it back, I'm gonna add more to it. We're talking about changing your perception and your perspective. And at the end of the day, when you start changing your perception and your viewpoint, you start having and thinking with your third eye, that spirit, where you start looking at things a little bit deeper. And I'm not saying like become like super deep and like super conspiracy theorist. But for instance, Kevin Hart was supposed to host the Oscars, right? He was supposed to host the Oscars. They slighted him for some things that he said in previous time. Well, because the Oscars got so much pushback from the African American community and that of the like, that they didn't get a lot of viewers. But if you pay attention to the Oscars, what they did do was they highlighted and awarded a lot of African American related individuals and movies. Come on now. When you start looking at things differently, you have a different perception of how you go about looking at things. How is it that they can arrest Bill Cosby and put him in prison for things that white men have been doing for years? And it's just so funny that none of those white men that have been tried for the same thing are in prison. Here it is, Jussie Smollett. Yeah, he lied. Yeah, he faked a situation. But how many people in Hollywood that don't look like you and me have done the same thing? And at the end of the day, you have a predominantly African American community like Chicago, but you can't find none of the killers that's killing these kids and gangbangers that's shooting up communities and people who have guns that aren't licensed or registered to utilize them. You mean to tell me you can find 2 Nigerian kidnappers and a check, but you can't find these Negroes and ninjas that's shooting up kids and having shootouts in the middle of the street? You mean to tell me that you couldn't use your police work? You mean to tell me that where was your antennas at when these kids was getting killed and these people were getting robbed and shot at? You mean to tell me that your police department is so adamant about the accusations and the situations that Jussie Smollett put himself in that you can't find these people who are doing these notorious things and pretty much bullying an entire community, schools, and all of these things? You mean to tell me that you can't impeach the president, that his attorney clearly just let us know about all the things that he's been doing behind closed doors that we all know that he's been doing? So you mean to tell me that none of you all can put that same police work and that same tenacity and resilience to putting these people behind bars? You mean to tell me that here we are getting ready to put R. Kelly in prison for 90s accusations all the way up into 2019. And don't get me wrong, I am not an advocate for R. Kelly dating kids. That's disgusting. That's nasty. And at the end of the day, he should be locked up if that's some things that he's still doing. But you can't try him for something he's been acquitted on. You want to bring up things that these young ladies have dealt with in the 90s, the early 90s for that matter, and here you are trying to do police work. Where's the police work when kids are getting gunned down and kidnapped? Where's the police work for the high numbers of human trafficking and child trafficking that we have? Where's the police work with all this money that's going missing that our Detroit city says that we have, that's not going to and adequately being dispersed amongst other contractors? Where's the police work there? Where's the police work where our mayor is selling off our communities and our board sitting up there getting $1 million contracts, but we're not even benefiting from it? Like, we have a whole little Caesars Arena downtown, but do they have a partnership with Detroit Public Schools Community District? Are they allowing the kids to come to one of the Detroit Pistons games for free? I mean, like, if I was a city council member, any contract, any partnership that we get should benefit not only the residents of the city of Detroit, the children of the city of Detroit, and the business owners of the city of Detroit. It shouldn't be the selective few that don't look like you and I, because at the end of the day, it only seems like these people are benefiting from being down there. Yeah, we have our twos and fews where we get selected for awards and we get our little few thousands of dollars here and we get awarded here just to make the Negro community feel better about what's going on within our city. But who is it really to benefit? That's why at the end of the day, you have to change your perception and your perspective of things. Because at the end of the day, yes, our city is evolving. And yes, it absolutely does look nice. And yes, we are having some changes that make our infrastructure look amazing. And yes, there are some job opportunities. But at the end of the day, who is it really for? When you can't come down there and not be harassed. Or when you can't come down there and they're looking at you as if you don't belong where you've lived your whole entire life, where now you have to move out of businesses that you once had, when you have to sit around and turn around and you can't enjoy the fruits of your labor because there's nowhere for you to enjoy it. You don't even feel comfortable. And at the end of the day, there's no reason for us to obtain these contracts within our city. And if you're tuning in, you're listening to Yeah, I Said It, and before I take it back, I'm going to add more to it. We're talking about changing your perception and changing your perspective. At the end of the day, when you are looking to have growth in any part of your world, you have to change the way that you think. And if you're still thinking on low-level, regular thinking, you'll never be able to get to premium level thinking. You'll never understand what it really means to look at a picture and really understand the value of it, because your perception has changed. It's like taking inner city youth on an excursion. They don't understand the value of what they're being taught because their perception of what they see on a regular basis is killing, stealing, robbing. Mama gotta go to work, single parent. You gotta rob Peter to pay Paul, or you trying to finesse and act like you live in a certain life that you're not living, and you gotta keep up with the Joneses only to look like a Johnson. At the end of the day, you end up making a fool of yourself because you need to sit down and calibrate your thoughts. It's too many of us that are working against each other instead of working with each other, and not just becoming a bubble or a clique, or only want to work with these type of people or this group of people, or dealing with certain amounts of people that may make you look good. Because at the end of the day, if you're really looking for growth, there's a plethora of people that you don't even realize that can help you. I've been in some really crazy situations where I end up meeting all types of walks of people. I ended up helping this lady at my place of employment, and she's getting ready to work on a major project. She ended up giving me her information, and now I'm going to be working on this major project with her. And at the end of the day, if I was snobbish or felt like, oh, I don't want to talk to these type of people, I would have lost out on an opportunity to work on a major project. And at the end of the day, if somebody reaches out to me and they say, hey, let's collaborate, let's work together, you want to make sure that your perception and your mindset and your vision for what it is that you want to do is clear and concise, because you don't want to be trying to reach out to people who don't understand what it is that you're trying to do. What's your platform? Which direction you going in? Which way, one day you want to do this, the next day you want to do that. Like, pick a lane, pick what it is that you want to do, stick with it, stay focused on it, so that people can understand how to move with you and not against you. And at the end of the day, you're always going to have haters. You're always going to have people that make you feel like you doing too much. Why you doing this? Why her catchphrase is, yeah, I said it. Why she always doing this? Why she always, because I want to. That's why. And yeah, I said it, before I take it back, I'm going to add more to it. And the reason why I do what I do is because I can do what I do. And there are a lot of people out here in this world that wish that they could do what you do and do it how you do it. And at the end of the day, because their perception and their mindset has not changed, they're alternatively living through you. And I'm going to tell you something. Jealousy is real. Yeah, I said it, and before I take it back, I'm going to add more to it. Change your perception, change your perspective, and listen, change your world. It's your girl, Zsa Zsa, and before I take it back, I'm going to add more to it.